Good afternoon. Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. The 49ers are 2-0, and Nick Bosa isn't even in football shape yet. He's just doing cardio out there on the field, getting his stamina up. How you doing?
Good, man. Feeling good. Niners are 2-0. They escaped without any major injuries, which, in the early part of the year, that's a big part of it as well.
Yes. So everything's good, but week one, they really had a statement win over the Steelers, made them look bad. Week two, the Rams came out of that game feeling great about themselves, whether they're right or not. They feel like, hey, we went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the league. We're on the upswing. And I don't know if that's true, but I think we did see some potential concerns with the Niners, particularly on defense, particularly in the first half. Ambry Thomas can't play for this team. I don't know why they keep going back to him, but when they eventually bench him mid-game, which they've done 2 games in a row, they go to Isaiah Oliver in the slot. He had some big plays, but he's been benched for a reason. And then today, the Niners worked out Bradley Roby. What do you know about him? He's been around.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot about him. I mean, he's a really feisty, competitive, quick-footed, loose hips, slot corner. Yeah, he's a nickel corner. He's a first-round pick. He's a great athlete. He ran, in the 4.3s coming out, played at Ohio State, played for Denver, won a Super Bowl with Denver. Then floated to Houston and New Orleans. I think the Saints cut him in August. He's now 31. Good, decent size, about 5'11", maybe 6 feet, right around or shade under 6 feet, but 195 pounds, 10 and a quarter inch hands, big hands, 3-star guy, high school guy out of Georgia. He's a good player. He's a good player. He's got a lot of experience in off-man coverage. He's a good blitzer. He's a good kick blocker. He's always had excellent ball production, man. This guy's always around the ball. He's got great balance, great feet, very confident, very competitive. He's scheme versatile. So, you want to play zone, he can play zone. You want to play off man, he can play off man. You want to play bump and run, he can play bump and run. He's a quick twitch guy. He's not the athlete. He's obviously not, 25 anymore. He's 31. There were some character concerns about him along the way. He had a couple different character issues along the way, but this guy can play football. There's no question. He's got ball skills. He's to me, if I could use 2 words to describe him, he's a tenacious, feisty, corner. So I would, with experience. So unless he's been hurt and he's lost a lot of speed, I'd be very interested.
Yeah. Interesting. He's 31, probably a little bit obviously past his prime. I think this is, whether they sign him or not, this is an admission from the Niners that this is their weak point on defense. You don't have to be a genius to figure out this is the weak point on defense, but their third cornerback, whether he's outside or inside, Isaiah Oliver, they don't have much confidence in any corner outside of Lenore and Ward. So Bradley Roby, I don't know if he's a solution, but they're going to have to work this out because they're going to go against teams with better wide receivers than the Rams, and they're eventually going to have this guy, whoever that number 3 cornerback is, tested. Maybe Bradley Roby's the best they can do. Maybe.
They got rid of Deshaun Jameson. That was a mistake.
I wanted to say that. That was a big mistake. I was just looking him up. They could have had him on the outside and Lenore in the slot. That's what they should have, but he's gone.
They chose, Matt Pryor and Jalen Moore. They probably should have gone with one backup offensive tackle. They didn't know which one they wanted to go with, or maybe they made Pryor or his agent some kind of a promise. But I don't know. I mean, they tried to squeeze Deshaun Jameson through waivers onto the practice squad, and the Cardinals, who are in their division, are hawking them. And they grabbed Il Manning, and then I should say they didn't grab today. They grabbed Quantrez Knight, but Carolina grabbed Deshaun Jameson. So now he's in Carolina. And that was a real mistake, because anytime you have guys that can play corner in the NFL, you keep them on your roster and you figure it out. And for them to take 4 backup offensive linemen, including 2 backup tackles that aren't that great, That was disappointing, and it cost him Jameson. And now here we are. We're 2 weeks into the season, and I'm sure they'd love to have him back.
You were there at every day of training camp with me. We watched Ambry Thomas and we watched Deshaun Jameson. Who was better?
I thought Jameson was clearly better.
Clearly.
But Ambry is got, here's the thing. Jameis, you got to remember this. I think Adam P. There's egos and there's stuff involved here. From what I had heard, Adam Peters had pounded the table loudly for Ambry Thomas. So maybe Ambry Thomas is his guy, and to cut Ambry Thomas at the cut down, maybe there would be some of the bloom would be off the rose of Adam Peters. How they think about Adam Peters. I don't know. Maybe they did it to protect Peters. Maybe they did it because they think Thomas is better. But Thomas is inconsistent.
He's not better.
I don't think he was terrible yesterday, but Puka Nacua, all those little stop routes in the first half, those were all against Ambry.
But the fact that Ambry was their number 3 cornerback to start the season, that he was literally on the field to start the year in their nickel packages, first 2 games, that's egregious. If that's who they think their third best corner was, then Jameson should have still been on the team because he could have been playing.
Yeah.
They need him now. You could argue they needed him the last 2 weeks. They won. But yeah, I wonder if that's going to come back to bite him because it's so hard to find corners who can play well as opposed to D linemen. D linemen, they're important and they're valuable, but they're kind of a dime a dozen, especially on this team with this D-line coach. They have no problem finding D-line.
Especially if you got a young guy that doesn't cost you anything, and Deshaun Jameson doesn't cost you anything. Plus, I mean, it was not smart because not only is Deshaun Jameson a good corner, not only could he play outside and inside in the slot, he's also an accomplished return man. So you also got rid of a really, I mean, and you saw it in the preseason. It wasn't like, we never saw that. We saw that. In the preseason, you could see, hey, wow, look at this guy. This guy's not just a return man. This guy's like kind of an experienced veteran, calm return man. But they obviously have other returners, and so they didn't feel the urgency there. But yeah, that was a gaffe, man. I mean, you should have picked between Jalen Moore and Matt Pryor. Neither of those guys is particularly good. They feared that with the dearth of offensive linemen around the league, that one of those guys would have gotten picked up. But so be it. Matt Pryor's out of shape. You can find Matt Pryor's on the street. You can't find a corner on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, the Niners just lost Quantrez Knight to the Cardinals. He's been on the practice squad for about a year and a half. He went to UCLA. I like him. Everyone calls him Q. He's got a lot of personality, and I think he's a good player. Now he's on the 53-man roster with the Cardinals. Before they got signed, I was doing a show with Ryan Hensley, and we were both saying, like, geez, be nice if they called up Quantrez Knight because I don't have a lot of confidence in Isaiah Oliver, and boom, he's gone. This feels like another missed opportunity. Like, he should have been on the team. You could argue in camp that he was better than Isaiah Oliver.
I thought he was. Yeah. And also he's versatile. He can play free safety. He can play slot corner. He can play outside corner. I was shocked when they promoted Trace Swilling to the roster this last week instead of Quantrez.
Yeah.
I thought that was very surprising. So, they looked really deep in training camp on the corner, like really deep. Yeah. Like, hey, they got 7 or 8 guys, and now they've lost a couple of those guys. So, this might be the area to watch for this year. Or maybe they have a belief, Grant, that Darrell Luter Jr. is going to come off that PUP list in a few weeks and that he's going to be really, really special. I mean, he is kind of their one ace in the hole. Not every team has a big, long-armed, big-bodied, starting caliber corner on the PUP list. They do, so maybe that impacted their thinking on this.
Perhaps. They have him and they have Sam Womack. The thing about Luter is it's sort of asking a lot for a rookie 5th-round pick or whatever he was, who missed all of training camp to step on the field and contribute on a team that's supposed to be going to the Super Bowl. They may not put him in that position. They're a little stodgy and conservative with rookies. The Womack I'm interested in. He's on IR. What did he injure? His knee? Do you remember? Anyway, he'll be back probably in a couple of months. Can they can they? I mean, if they keep winning, they'll be fine. But eventually, he might be the option to put out there instead of Ambry Thomas.
Well, I mean, I
Isaiah
like
Oliver.
Womack a lot. I think Womack's a starting caliber player, but was it a knee? I forget what it was. But he's on the IR, and probably they're thinking not going to be back. He's got an MCL injury, but he's not going to need surgery. So it's an MCL sprain of some kind, but he's not going to need surgery. They think he's going to be gone probably 6 weeks, maybe as many as 8 weeks. But I mean, I like Womack a lot. And they also have Shamar Jean-Charles, who they picked up from Green Bay. I think he's still on their practice squad, so they do have another guy there.
I don't understand why the Niners give away these corners. They gave away DJ Reed a few years ago. Now he's one of the better corners in the league. And they keep doing it. It's a really hard position to find, and it's really one of their weaker spots.
And, it's funny. And, if the Jets wind up being this nightmare team that they appear to be, DJ Reed might be a perfect target for them to trade for, at the end of October, when they get down to the trade deadline. A 4th round pick for DJ Reed probably makes sense, or, something like that. Maybe a 3rd for DJ Reed, because he's really solid, and he's feisty, he's aggressive, he can play 3-4 spots. He's got a little bit of the Jimmy Ward in him too, in that he's one of those tone setting guys.
That being said, I'm starting to really, 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 really like Diamador Lenore. I feel like they should just leave him alone on the outside, stop moving him around, because when he plays outside corner, it seems like he makes plays.
I thought he had the best coverage all day in the second half on Nakua, on the ball where he undercut the route. Yeah, I mean, Lenore plays with alone on the outside. Confidence.
Get a nickel. Leave him alone on the outside. Just get a freaking nickel who can compete with Isaiah Oliver. It should have been Jimmy Ward. They could have afforded him. They have $41 million in cap space now. They should have brought back Jimmy Ward. That was such a mistake.
That was. But Houston's another team. They're thinking long term. They're not thinking short term. If you really get into a pinch, you probably could trade for Jimmy Ward. And they may.
That would be really funny. Please do. Joey Mellons says, Grant, world famous Hot Boys is the most consistent fried chicken sando place I found in Oakland. I don't think it's the best though. Where do I find a good chicken sando? Oh, Cowbird, made by the same dude who has the barbecue place. What's the barbecue place in Oakland that I forgot? That's in West Oakland. Horn Barbecue, which is just the best barbecue in probably the West Coast. He made a fried chicken spot. They make regular fried chicken sandwiches, hot fried chicken sandwiches like the Nashville style, and they also make one with like honey, which I haven't had yet, but that seems to be a popular one. So shout out to them. Jay Garza, member for 21 months. That's a long time. Thank you, Jay. Jay Garza. The obvious roster mistakes before and after the draft, before and after cuts are piling up. Hope it doesn't burn this win now team. I know, like we keep talking about issues they have and mistakes they've made, and yet what have they won? Like 12 regular season games in a row? Is it 12?
I think it's 12. Yeah,
it's 12.
It's remarkable. They're playing really well. I mean, they're finding a way to win games. They're finding a way to win games, and it's not. You can't say, well, they just played this team. No, because they beat Dallas in the playoffs. They beat Seattle in the playoffs for a 3rd time in 1 year. Who knows what would have happened in Philly? But yeah, outside of the Philly game, they've beaten everybody. They're one of the better teams in pro football. There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt. No doubt. So Brock Purdy had an interesting game. Offense put up 30 points. He had a touchdown pass called back because he was slightly backwards. Didn't turn the ball over. Stafford turned it over twice. But the plays that stuck out for Purdy, right or wrong, were the 3 missed deep ones. Maybe because people just like to nitpick, or maybe because we haven't really seen that part of his game show up yet consistently. So, given everything that happened, how was your greatest performance, and explain your rubric?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so he overthrew Ayuk in the first half on a 2nd and 9 slant and go, and he badly overthrew him. Like he overthrew him by 3 steps. Yards. Yeah, I mean, it was 3-4 steps. It was not close. He could never make a play on the ball. That was bad. The one to Debo was so deep. And he overthrew him. I mean, he overthrew it by 2-3 yards, and maybe the trajectory was a little flat. So that wasn't good. Then he overthrew Juwan I can't remember the exact sequence, but it was in the second half.
Not sure that would have been a touchdown, but it would have been a big play. The other
Yeah.
two probably should have been touchdowns.
So he had
Would have been touchdowns.
at least 3 overthrows that could have all been touchdowns, really. And that would have made this an unbelievable day.
Yeah.
He still completed. I mean, he was 17 of 25. So that's 68%. Grant, it's remarkable. Nice. It's remarkable how consistent this guy is. He was 67% at Iowa State. I think he was like 67% last year. I think that's kind of what he is. He's about a 67, 68% completion guy. And it seems like there's no, without fail, he completes 68%. So he was 17 of 25, 206 yards. He took the 1 sack. He had 3 runs. He had the 1 quarterback sneak for the touchdown. No turnovers. He had 5 different receivers. I would give him a B-. Why? Because 6 for 6 on that first drive. Okay, so like to me, how you set the tone at the beginning of the game matters. He came out sharp, 6 for 6 on the first drive. They go down the field, they score a touchdown, they give their defense an advantage. Then he also engineered a 7-play, 75-yard touchdown drive at the end of the second quarter in like a minute 30 or minute 40, whatever that was. So that was really good. And then no turnovers. I mean, if he had hit those 3 long balls that we're talking about, then he's 20 of 25. And you're talking about a guy who's completed well over 70% of his passes with maybe 3 touchdowns and, a 4th, rushing touchdown. And, so I mean, I would say a B-. It was not, I mean, you heard him in the post game. It's like he himself was critical. Yeah. So it's like, it's not like, hey, if people are critical of Purdy, they're crazy. Purdy was critical of Purdy. But still 68%, no turnovers, got them into and out of a lot of good plays at the line of scrimmage. Never really wilted in the face of pressure, never turned it over. I thought overall it wasn't his best performance. It was one of his worst performances, but I would still give it a B- because they got a win on the road and and here's the other thing. At the end of the day, his bad performance where he missed 3 touchdowns maybe also still resulted in them putting up 30. It's a lot of points, man. I mean, that's the part that I have a hard time getting beyond is that, wow. I mean, look at this. This guy's 9-0 outside of the NFC Championship game loss to Philly where he didn't finish. The Niners score 30 a game. Their point differential in those 9 games is like plus 150 or something. I mean, it's really fat. And, since week 14 of last year, I mean, we're talking about the number 1 rated passer in the league, the number 1 touchdown passer in the league, 2nd in the league in yards per attempt. But just in this game, I'd say B- because of the 3 missed throws.
I gave him a B. But you're much more of a negative person than me, and you're really tough. You're a lot tougher on Purdy than me. What I think of as interesting about this grade is it's all about these 3 misses. And you figure if he had just hit one of them, let's say he hit the one to Debo down the middle for a touchdown, his grade would have been an A, right? I think it would have. So that to me shows how big this part of the game is. If he could just hit one of these, all of a sudden he goes to a whole different grading tier. If he can't, then he's always going to be, what'd you call him in the offseason? Like, he's a 7. He'll be stuck as a 7 on a really good team who's cheap. You're getting paid to be a 2 and he's a 7. But if he can hit that throw, you don't even have to hit all 3 of them. Hit one of them. And all of a sudden, you might be the offensive player of the week. You could be a Pro Bowler. Like, I think it's important, but I also think it's attainable. You don't have to hit all 3. You don't even have to hit 2 of them. Just hit 1.
I also think that we're also overlooking that he threw a flat dime for a touchdown to Debo, and Darion Kendrick face guarded him and got a PI. That was in Debo's hands in the corner of the end zone. That was an absolute dime, and Kendrick face guarded him, so they got 1st and goal at the 1, and eventually he scored on the quarterback sneak. But that was a pass that he put right on Debo. Right on
beautiful.
Debo.
and he didn't have any throw that was like almost intercepted or could have been intercepted. Like he was much more, he's better than Stafford in that regard. Now, the first interception that Stafford had was not his fault, but I always feel with Stafford, once things start to go bad, once he throws one pick, the second one's coming. He kind of has this like, all right, screw it attitude that maybe like Phillip Rivers used to have. Like, I'm going to go down swinging. I'm not just going to check down my way to the end.
Stafford's a gunslinger, man. Stafford's a great player, but he has 171 career picks. I mean, think about that.
That's crazy.
I mean, the guy's had 20 interceptions in a season. He's had over 15 in a season, like 5 times. So, I mean, he throws picks. He takes chances. He's a gunslinger. I love Stafford, though, and my only question coming out of this game is if you're the Rams, because I think the Rams are kind of real on some fronts, right? If you're the Rams, do you pivot away from potential contention and try to trade Stafford and Aaron Donald and see if you can get up in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes and solidify your franchise and your ticket sales and your, going forward with Caleb in LA? Because if they could, I mean, you know how popular SC is in LA. If the Rams could get Caleb Williams, it would be good for the Rams. It would be good for the league. And it would be great for sustaining their franchise.
Let me just be frank. I don't give a fuck about the Rams. So no one does. And frankly, no one does from the look at SoFi. I got a question about Purdy, a follow-up question about Purdy.
Yeah.
Is he the best quarterback from the 2022 draft? Obviously, the last quarterback taken. Was he the best?
I mean, I'm trying to think who else was it. It was Pickett, right? And
let me go through. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, who do you got?
From the beginning. Hold on.
Pickett. Pickett was 1.
Pickett was 1. Desmond Ridder was 2.
He's better than Ridder. He's better than Pickett. He's better than Ridder.
Malik Willis is 3.
Way better than Malik.
Matt Corral is 4.
Way better than him.
Bailey Zappi's 5.
Better than him.
Sam Howell's 6.
That's one that Sam Howell's real. I don't know if you watched how much you've watched of Sam. Sam Howell is thick and strong, and he's small as well, but he's real. He's an athlete, and he can run.
Undefeated.
He's got a good arm. Career. He's not bad. Yeah. He's not bad. But I think he's better. Purdy. I think Purdy's better than him.
They're similar though, in terms of skill set. Purdy's on a better team. Howell has a stronger arm. Purdy's probably we haven't seen that much of either one of them.
Howell's
it would be interesting.
Howell's fast. I've seen Howell have a 100-yard day on the ground.
I mean, there's a reason that Howell was drafted ahead of Purdy, right? Like in terms of like, if you just watched them in college and looked at their physical makeup, I could see how Howell would get picked ahead.
He throws a good ball and he's fast and, led a prolific offense at North Carolina. But I still think Purdy's a little bit more refined as a passer. Howell's more of a one speed, throw it hard, throw everything hard.
Yeah, you're right. He's a little bit like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. That's a good call. He's short like that, but he's got kind of a howitzer.
Yeah, he kind of does. And wasn't there a time, I think when he was maybe a sophomore or something, that people were looking at him as maybe being a top pick in the draft, and then it all fell apart for him at North Carolina. But
Carolina always underachieves. And he shared some time, I think. I mean, it just didn't come together, had some injuries, but maybe he's in a good spot right now. I mean, he's the unquestioned starter. Ron Rivera could have gone in other directions. He didn't.
He's similar to Purdy in the sense that he was a 3-year starter, not a 4-year starter, but a 3-year starter at a mid-tier school. So, he had adversity. And now he's on a team that's trying to be like the 49ers. Washington has Rand Carthon as their GM, who was with the Niners, and he's trying to build that kind of a physical team. And they're trying to not spend on the quarterback, just like the Niners. It's the same idea. It's interesting. Yeah. Those two are the ones.
So there's there's only other guy you didn't name was Skylar Thompson, who's not bad either. But yeah, it's a Purdy Howell debate. I mean, some people would say Kenny Pickett, but I'm not as big a Kenny
And I think
Pickett.
what we're learning is there's no reason to take a quarterback in round 1 if he's not like a no doubt about it first round pick, when you could get guys like Sam Howell and Brock Purdy on day 3. Experienced quarterbacks from mid-tier schools who have a little bit of athleticism. You can find guys like that. You put a good team around them and pay them nothing, they could have success. Doesn't mean they'll be your franchise quarterback, but they could be a high-level quarterback for you for 3-4 years. I think that's changing how teams look. Like, why take
Well,
Kenny Pickett in round 1? That's a terrible decision.
I mean, let's go back to this last year, right? Okay, so Bryce Young went number 1, and you had C.J. Stroud
Sure.
going number 2, and you had Anthony
Sure.
Richardson, who looked good this weekend at times.
Yeah.
He went number 4. Will Levis went in round 2. Okay, so those are the first 2 rounds. But rounds 3 through 7, these are the quarterbacks. And there's some interesting names here. Hendon Hooker, who's in Detroit. Jake Hayner, who's Julie Hayner's kid, who's in New Orleans. Stetson Bennett, he's a backup type guy. But how about Aiden O'Connell? I think Aiden O'Connell's pretty good.
Clayton Tune, he get taken 4?
He got picked in the 4th round. Clayton Tune went in the 5th round. I think Clayton Tune's pretty good. I think people will see that. DTR went in the 4th round to the Browns. Sean Clifford, Jaron Hall, Tanner McKee is not bad with Philly. He's not playing right now, but he's not bad. Max Duggan's not bad. So I mean, I would, the Walsh used to say that you should take a quarterback in every draft, and you know what? That might not be the worst.
Niners should have taken one this year. Niners should have taken one this year. They could have taken Aiden O'Connell. They could have taken DTR. I mean, I know they like Sam Darnold, but come on. They could have done it again and had like the next Brock Purdy in waiting. They have the blueprint. They created the blueprint, and Washington's following it. I wonder if we're going to see less teams reach. There's no reason to reach for quarterbacks anymore. It feels like college is producing guys who are extremely experienced. Stop reaching for guys who have upside.
There's 70 or 80 guys who have been drafted quarterback-wise in the first round this century, and like 5 or 6 have won the Super Bowl. It's a low percentage play. If you draft a first-round quarterback, for whatever reason, maybe teams aren't looking at the right things. Maybe a guy like Purdy will change the look. Not that they'll be looking for short quarterbacks or quarterbacks who have cheap, average arm strength. But like you might be looking for guys, like Aiden O'Connell, maybe should have gone higher than the 4th round. And DTR maybe should have gone higher than a pick number 140, because these guys played in college and had success in college. So
you're seeing the Niners have success. They're having sustained success, and teams are trying to be like the 49ers. If they win the Super Bowl, more teams will try to be like the 49ers. And a big part of their blueprint that other teams haven't replicated or committed to is the cheap quarterback. Like, this is the cheapest quarterback you could possibly have. And he's also really good. But the team is just so good, and he couldn't be this good without him making nothing. Like, if he had a first-round contract, they couldn't do this. So other teams are going to try to do this with eventually, I would think. I mean, I bet the Steelers regret drafting Kenny Pickett already. He's already getting too much money. They could have had Sam Howell in round 5.
And it's not like we've never seen this happen before. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. Joe Montana was a 3rd-round pick. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. They're the exceptions, not the rule. But you know what? It just seems like the whole discussion on quarterbacks, it's all about arm strength and upside and potential. And yet, what about the guy who's just ball comes out on time and he processes well and he's marginal size and marginal arm strength, but he can, lead a team up and down the field?
If you are an organization that has a track record of developing quarterbacks, by all means, like Green Bay, they do a great job. They've done it over and over and over again. By all means, stick to your process, but know who you are. Like the 49ers, don't try to be that. You're not that guy. You're not that team. You're not that guy. You're not that organization. These are the kind of quarterbacks you work with. Guys who are very experienced coming into the league. That's the right guy for you. Brock Purdy. Perfect for you. And I think for a lot of teams, because I don't really think there are that many teams or coaches who actually develop quarterbacks in the NFL. It's not really a developmental league. It's hard to do. Rules prevent it.
Oh, I mean, there is no minors. There's no minors. No. If there was a minor league, then you could take all the Trey Lances of the world with traits and just say, you know what? We're going to 3 years from now, this guy's coming out of our minor league system and he's going to be something. But because you don't have a minor league system, it's like, okay, well, we can put him on the practice squad, but other teams can poach him. So you can't do that. Okay, we can sit him on the bench, but then we're going 52-man roster while everybody else is going with 53. I don't know, so it's like they don't have a spot. I mean, the NFL badly needs some kind of a developmental league if they're going to go with young quarterbacks. Or if they're not going to have a developmental league, then they probably should stop drafting guys based on traits and start drafting them based on production.
The one team, I will move on in a second, but the one team that's had success drafting a quarterback with upside traits and developing him is Green Bay, unless I'm missing someone. And what they do is they sit the guy for 3 years. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years. Jordan Love sat for 3 years. I think if you're going to do that, you have to be really, really patient. But the whole idea is if you want to build a team around a cheap quarterback, you don't have to. You don't want to waste 3 years of his rookie contract. You want him on the field. So that a lot of teams aren't going to even want to try to do that. And this is all like the Brock Purdy, theory. If the Niners win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, the quarterback market could just crater. And I wouldn't be against it. I feel like these guys are getting paid way too much money anyway. It's a whole team.
Well, and then how many teams in the NFL who don't have a franchise quarterback still went through the entire draft and didn't draft a quarterback? Lots of them. There's all kinds of teams out there that really don't have their guy, or their guy's just okay, and they still didn't go for any of these late round guys. So, I mean, it is amazing too. I mean, I've really thought on draft day in 2021 that draft, all those quarterbacks were going to be good. Thought Trey was going to be good. Thought Fields was going to be pretty good. Thought Mac Jones. Thought that Zach Wilson. Now here we are, a couple short years later. Fields looks bad. Lance is a third stringer. Zach Wilson looks bad. Davis Mills looks bad. Mac Jones looks spotty. And the only guy who looks good out of the group is Trevor.
Yeah, who was a 3-year starter. And I think in retrospect, that was the COVID year. And so all of these quarterbacks were lacking experience. And you're like, oh, well, it's not their fault. There was COVID. True. But we see now experience is really, 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 really important. And if you're going to get it in the NFL, like Justin Fields has 27 starts under his belt. It's not getting better for him.
Oh, Zach Wilson, the interception he threw on his own goal line?
Yeah. Like you really do need the experience before you get in the league. Even Jordan Love started multiple years in college. I think Mac Jones had like 800 throws. No, he had 500 throws, something like that. Zach Wilson had 800. Trey Lance had 300. Justin Fields had 800. Like these guys none of them were ready. None of them really were ready to come in the league. Blame COVID or not, but that was, in retrospect, that was a not a good year for the quarterback.
It makes me wonder too when I look around the league and I see all these young play callers. How many guys are really quarterback developers? They want developed guys. Nobody wants to sit there and be like Holmgren with Steve Young, or these guys who want to go through your mechanics. They want you to be ready to roll right now. And if you get a year, that's great. If you're not this idea of 2, 3. Like Rodgers had 4 years. That's just that's never going to happen, especially in a round one.
We talk about it. I think I've talked about it before, during the draft. To me, I think 900 throws is an interesting number for quarterbacks coming out of school. It's hard to find a lot of successful NFL quarterbacks who didn't throw at least 900 passes in college, and junior college counts. I think the guys we're naming, Sam Howell, Brock Purdy, are guys who threw Jordan Love. The guys threw 11, 12, 1,300 passes in college. I wouldn't bet on a guy with 600 throws on his resume. You don't know that guy. He hasn't proven himself.
Right.
He doesn't have enough experience.
To me, you gotta take everybody who's a 1-year guy and you gotta put him in a different category. Mitchell Trubisky had a great singular year at North Carolina. Zach Wilson had a great singular year. These guys that have a real short resume. It's Trey Lance. You know what? Yeah, Trey Lance had an amazing statistical one season at the FCS level. It's like you got to see why, because maybe they got with a great coordinator, maybe they got into a nice little rhythm with a receiver. I mean, that can be enough for 1 year.
But Joe Burrow spoiled everyone. He had one great year essentially, and then everyone's like, okay, well then, if Joe Burrow can have one great year to translate, then everyone else is. And Josh Allen, too. Josh Allen went from being inaccurate to somewhat accurate, and everyone felt they could develop the next Josh Allen. No, he's one of one. Joe Burrow's one of one. Anyway.
And Josh Allen has kind of shown regression, hasn't he? I mean, you're right. He was 56% at Wyoming. And then at times, Josh Allen looks really, really bad. And if you saw him at Wyoming, sometimes he looked really, really bad. Other times it's like, wow, man, look at this guy. He's 6'6". He's got a gun. And I love Josh Allen, and I'd live with his bumps in the road, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a straight shot to the top. I mean, he's had some bad games.
Absolutely. Let's take a moment to acknowledge my sponsor, BetUS. If you want to bet on the Niners' upcoming game against the Giants, or really any football game, or really anything, go to BetUS, use the link in the description, and they will match your first wager 125%. So let's take a look at what you could be betting on with the Niners this week. They're playing the Giants Thursday night. They're 10.5-point favorites, Larry.
Oh,
10.5.
that sounds
Is
like a
that even
teaser to me.
enough?
I may have to tease that down.
Explain what teasers are to people who don't understand.
Oh, well, it just means like you can, there's 6.5-point teasers and 7.5-point teasers. So like if you have 7.5, you could take the Niners -3, or you could take the Giants +18 if they're favored by 10.5.
Got it. Well, Niners -10.5. I'm going to take the Niners to actually cover that. What do you think?
From what I'm reading, there's no Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, no Saquon Barkley.
The Thursday night games historically have favored the home team in dramatic fashion. Then you mix in the fact that this team
has to come
opener.
Across the country on a Thursday. Sorry.
I that's the other thing I would say is always when you're wagering on games, always take a look at the rest situation. Because like when the Niners play the Bengals later this year, the Niners, I think the week before play on a short week and have to travel home to face Cincinnati. Cincinnati will have had like 13 days of rest before that game. So that, and believe me, one advantage day of rest makes a difference in game prep. When you have a whole week, or, that's a major, major advantage. So that one will be a game where, hey, you might want to stay away from the Niners against the Bengals. In this situation, I think the rest situation favors the Niners. And I would probably take the Niners and give the points. I would tease it down to, 49ers -3 and then parlay it with the over or the under. But if I had to one way or another, the only way I would wager on that spread is taking the Niners. I wouldn't take the Giants in that number.
I mean, 10.5, I feel good about it because I feel like the Giants aren't going to be able to stop the Niners offense. What makes me a little nervous about it is Niners did just give up 17 points in one half to a team that had Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, and Tutu Atwell. I mean, not exactly the most talented team. And now you get a quarterback who can get outside the pocket a little bit, and Jalen Hyatt, who looks like the real deal. Plus Darren Waller and Darius Slayton. So I don't know. I feel like this team has a little bit more going for it in terms of just firepower than the Rams. Although I'm not sure the Giants would beat the Rams. I'm not sure the Giants are good at all. They've been getting smacked. They came all the way. They were down 20-0 in this game on Sunday and came back to win 31-28. So I don't know what to think of the Giants right now. Maybe they just started slow, but I think the Niners should be able to cover this.
On paper, Grant, they should have a really, really good pass rush. On one end, you got Kayvon Thibodeau. On the other end, you got Akeem Ojulari. They had 0 sacks in this game against Joshua Dobbs, who threw 31 times. So,
wow.
Maybe
they made Josh Dobbs look good. So that should be a good game.
They made Josh Dobbs look good.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. All right. If you want to wager on that game or any game or anything in particular, click the link in the description and use my promo code. Thank you very much. Mark, Joey Mellon says Horn Barbecue is better than Pig in a Pickle, Larry. Hit it up. Horn Barbecue is unreal. Their brisket is way too good. I think the guy's from Fresno, too. He's not even from the South. He just knows how to do it.
Who used to be my favorite barbecue place? You probably remember. You remember the great Nate Thurmond, who was played for the Warriors forever on Folsom. It was like 13th and Folsom back in the day. He used to have his own Big Nate's barbecue. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing. No longer there.
Mark, member for 10 months. No lie. Only 106 Rams fans at SoFi. Am I right?
Looks like a sea of red,
they
man.
Don't care. Game Time says, was a Trey guy, but if Brock hits those deep guys, he's the guy. Yeah, if he hits those, he's the guy, and you don't have to hit all of them. I mean, I think on throws more than 20 yards down the field, they want you to have like a 44% completion. Like 4 out of 9 is good. It's like 3-point shots.
The big one on these is also how he missed them. If he missed them and they hung in the air and they didn't get there, I think we would all be sitting there going, you know what? His deep ball hangs. The fact of the matter is he led his guys too far. All of them were overthrown. So it wasn't like, man, he didn't have the arm to get it there. It was like, hey, he just overthrew his guy.
I'd rather a guy miss a deep ball short than long, because if it's a little short, the wide receiver can make an adjustment, stop, come back, jump up. But if it's long, there's nothing you can do unless you can dive for 5 yards.
It depends. If there's a safety deep facing you, then the deep ball turns into an easy interception. If the safety's in the trail position, then the deep ball's safer.
Yeah, I'm just talking if it's 1-on-1 like it was in this game.
Yeah.
Talking Head says this is being overly complicated. It was a bad game for Brock Purdy. It was. Those are lost TDs, and that's okay. 30 came mostly from CNC and Debo. BP left 21 on the board. Okay. It's really interesting how Brock Purdy can have a bad game, leave all these points on the board. Nick Bosa can get essentially shut out, and the Niners still win. Probably a good thing, because we've seen a lot better from Brock Purdy. Jay Garza says, did you see McKivitz get beat quickly and easily, even with a chip from 15? We should all be scared for Brock Purdy. I've watched some McKivitz with the coach. Shout out to the coach. He just he seems slow. He seems slow in pretty much everything he does. Burford seems really athletic and fast, but he just doesn't seem to be moving people. So those guys are a little concerning.
McKivitz lacks that huge size and crazy arm length, and he's not a blue chipper. He's more of I don't know that he's a true right tackle. I think what he is on a championship caliber team, he's the offensive lineman that's first off the bench that can play any spot. He can play left guard, right tackle, center, any spot.
Right.
But they should have not taken Cam Latu, and they should have taken gigantic Dawan Jones out of Ohio State, and then they wouldn't have this problem. They'd have Dawan Jones probably starting at right tackle.
Yeah. Matt says, got here late. We lost Q. Are you kidding me? That's a tough one. I can't believe that happened. And they're looking at Bradley Roby like, I'd rather just have Quantrez Knight. Ezio Sanchez says over under 20 Fernandos this season. I say under. Why do you guys let it go? Gio Deuce says, just want to shout out Purdy for that 2-minute drill throw to Jennings before he came out of his break right over the middle. Purdy's an ace when he's in his green zone. Yeah, when he's throwing those intermediate passes, so far he's as good as anyone. So far, from what we've seen. It's really throws with a ton of anticipation and accuracy. Very impressed. I was watching tape with the coach a few days ago, and we were just watching offensive line, but there were some throws for Purdy. Was like, man, couldn't have been placed any better. So he's a lot of fun to watch.
His accuracy is what separates him on the short and
over the middle for sure.
Yeah.
Mayhew, a GM for Commanders, ran Titans with the Niners. Brother Bob Iglet, what do you use for post-game hangovers? I'm good today, honestly.
I'd say 3 Advil and a big glass of water.
Okay, that works. Jay Garza's, I usually maybe a burrito, super wet burrito with a little ranchero sauce on. That'll do it. Jay Garza says,
maybe just rice, no beans. Maybe just rice, no beans. That would be the route I would go.
Okay, Niners wrongly kept 9-0 line and lost 2 CBs. Shake my head. Those CBs are nice. I don't know why the Niners just let them go. Brother Bob, Kevin's dad, what do you use to quell your Brock Purdy obsession? Cold showers.
Yeah.
Wolf Life Wild says, thanks. You took the words right out of my mouth with our D not pressing and Nakua's greatness. I think Brock is feeling ghost pressure like Jimmy Garoppolo post-injury. Who's Aaron Donald?
Nakua, by the way, was freaking amazing. And that guy is just – there were people in the draft process that were talking about him. And every time I watched him, I just was like, not that impressed. He just didn't look that good to me. He looked kind of stiff. He didn't run that fast. I'm like, he looks a little top heavy, looks a little stiff, doesn't run that fast. So much for that. The guy looks like he's going to be the
he's like the next Cooper Kupp for them. They're going to use him exactly how they use Cooper Kupp. And that's the thing. Cooper Kupp had a great year, but like he basically catches 8-yard passes. That's essentially what he does. He runs that little curl route against zone.
Good luck defending that team when they get Cooper back.
Yeah, it's true. It's going to be
interesting. They do have the deep threat. They've got Tutu Atwell, so he can run off the defense, and then you've got these guys underneath. I asked Wilkes about it last week, and he's like, yeah, we like to focus on Stafford, because I'm like, you got to defend these guys totally different. Atwell, you got to give him room because otherwise he may burn you for 6. And I go, the other guy, you just got to hug up on him because he's just going to run all these short routes. And he was like, yeah, we're worried more about Stafford. Well, and then Nakua was like every possible short route, shallow cross, little hitch. They got him the ball every way imaginable within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage.
So are the Rams a good team? Cooper Kupp's coming back, Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Tutu Atwell, looking like a good offensive line.
Improved
and
O-line.
Matthew Stafford looking like the guy he was 2 years ago. What do you think?
Well, their defense is, it doesn't have any teeth.
Quick, name
anymore.
4 players on the defense. Go.
Yeah,
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald
Kobe.
on the defensive front. Kobe Turner on the nose guard. The rookie from Tennessee. Byron Jones. Darion Kendrick is a corner from Georgia. But they don't have a single player in their secondary that you go, oh yeah, that guy.
No, Kello Witherspoon.
Yeah, Kello Witherspoon. Who I loved McCaffrey. What'd you say to Kello Witherspoon? Oh, I just said
good
hi.
To see you. Hi,
good
what's
to
up?
See you. Hey, what's up?
That was really cool. Christian McCaffrey's pretty cool. The only thing that's not cool about Christian are his little boots that he wears after the game. I'm sorry, Christian. I like Christian, but what are those boots? What are those with the little they have little heels on them too? That I don't know. They're probably very fashionable. I bet they cost thousands of dollars, but I think they're kind of silly.
What a pickup, though, huh? He's ever since they got him.
That's a more important point. That's probably a more cogent point. Not what he wears to the post-game press conferences.
He's amazing. He made Jimmy better. He makes Purdy better. He makes, he's really solid. They're maybe overusing him, but he's really solid.
I want to ask you, are the Rams a good team? Are they the second best team in the NFC West? Is this a team that's going to the playoffs? I
think they are the second best team.
How good are they?
West. I think they're the second best team because McVay is a terrific coach who's still in his prime, and Stafford is borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame, but he's borderline Hall of Fame. But he's still really good. Really good. And those weapons that he has, the one thing I got out of this game is, Stafford's still legit. McVay's still engaged. McVay's a great coach because he's now shaping his game plans to his talent that he has right now, which is different than his Super Bowl years. And those weapons are real. Tutu Atwell's real. Nakua's real. Kyron Williams is real. Higbee's real. So, they've got, and that Steve Avila, the left guard from TCU, he's a blue chipper, going to play 10 years in the NFL. So they've improved their O-line. They got a great quarterback. I think they've got a great head coach, and they've got legitimate offensive weapons, and they're going to get Cooper Kupp back. On defense, though, no. Aaron Donald is old. He doesn't have enough help. You can slide the entire line to him, and the secondary is just a bunch of guys.
Wolf Life Wild says the last field goal was F, just trying to ruin everyone's point spread. I was in a pick'em league, and I had picked the Niners to cover. That I realized, why did they do that? That wasn't cool.
Well, you also got to sit there and wonder, why did they do that? I was going to ask you, maybe you know the answer to this. Is there a tiebreaker that involves total points scored?
I don't know.
Otherwise, if I'm Roger Goodell, I'm putting in a nice little phone call to the Rams and saying, excuse me, can I talk to Sean McVay? Sean, what's going on here? Why the rush to kick a field goal at the end? Unless total points are part of the tiebreaker, then he's got to.
Wolf Life Wild again says no, Larry. Nakua was okay, soft coverage. My grandma could catch it. He was really good at what they asked him to do. I just felt like if you're gonna play super soft zone coverage, he's gonna eat you alive. If you cover a man to man, he might not. And I don't know what you're afraid of. He's not going to run by any of your corners.
Right.
Man up.
And it wasn't like, hey, man, we didn't have any indication that he was this kind of player. This is what the film showed if you watch the Seattle game, and I know the Niners did. So you watch the Seattle game. They played pitch and catch underneath all day to this guy. You had to get right up on the line of scrimmage and take him away immediately. And if this were the Super Bowl, you would have done it. But because it was just regular season week 2, they're like, we'll just kind of, we'll see how the game goes. We'll see how it goes.
And fortunately for the 49ers, that running back tipped that pass to Isaiah Oliver, and that really ended the game. But until then, it was anyone's game. And something, funny things happen. Fortunately for the Niners, it happened in their favor. Nee says Stafford showed how much of an equalizer a great elite quarterback can be despite talent discrepancy across the teams. Yeah, and then he threw 2 picks. First one wasn't his fault, though. But Stafford is really good, and then he does that. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you're a Hall of Famer.
He's a gunslinger, man. He takes shots. He takes shots that he doesn't even need to take sometimes.
Who's the 49ers' number one offensive weapon?
Well, I mean, I know people would say it's McCaffrey, but I think it's Ayuk, and that was the other thing. The Niners found a way to score 30 in this game with their number one weapon. Clearly, I don't know is it neck? Is it shoulder? What's Ayuk's injury?
They say shoulder, so we'll see.
Yeah, he seemed like he was in a lot of pain. So, to me, that's another amazing thing if you really think about it. How many teams could you take away their number one guy and they could still put up 30? That's what happened in this game.
Number one guy. I don't think he's their number one guy.
Who do you think is?
I think it's McCaffrey, because we just saw Ayuk essentially was limited for this game. They scored 30. Debo missed a few weeks last year. They scored 30 routinely with Brock Purdy and McCaffrey. Ever since McCaffrey's been here and Brock Purdy was the quarterback, they score 30 points a game. So I think if you took McCaffrey off, that would be the real test. If McCaffrey had to miss a game or a month, could they still keep up the points? I don't know if they could. Maybe if they do, then you're looking at maybe Brock Purdy's number one offensive weapon on this team.
Well, if you just watched the minicamp, you'd say no doubt it was CMC, right? He was the best guy in the minicamp. But in training camp, I thought it was undoubtedly Ayuk. I mean, Ayuk up high, Ayuk down low. You threw it behind him, he dove for it behind. I mean, the guy acted like
he kind of paced himself in training camp. He wasn't out there every day.
Yeah, that he was taking it a little bit easier. But Ayuk was like a man on a mission in camp.
He was.
And it's just there's something about a guy who's got such a ridiculous catch radius. I mean, the guy can really get up and will, and then he'll really go low and has. So I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and there's a great argument to be made for CMC. Heck, the way Debo comes out against the Rams, in a way Debo is kind of one of their leaders out of the tunnel. It feels like in a lot of ways Debo is kind of a tone setter. I'll say this: Debo, CMC, and Ayuk. The one thing that makes me feel like the Niners can win the Super Bowl is those three guys all appear to be headed on a career year trajectory.
Yep. Not sure about where George Kittle factors in, but if Kittle's your fourth option on offense, and frankly, he's kind of the fifth option after Juwan Jennings right now. And if he's your fifth option, okay, you might just win the Super Bowl. We'll see.
Jennings is super underrated. Super underrated. I've never seen him
get paid.
I'll say this too. I mean, think about this. Cooper Kupp's the best receiver in the game. He runs 4.6. Juwan Jennings is a major, major force for the Niners. He ran like 4.78 or something like that.
DeAndre Hopkins was always slow.
It's amazing how, and this Puka Nacua is not fast. I mean, we're talking about 4.55, something like that, mediocre. It's amazing when you think about what, and Lynch, I guess, told Peter King and said that, that when they first started, that they wanted separators and guys who were super fast, and now they want more physical guys with ball skills. And you can see why, because it's like the guys who are physical with the ball skills make all the plays.
Yep. Absolutely. Is Nick Bosa in football shape, Larry? What is the deal here?
No, he's not. I mean, I thought he just went a whole lot harder at the end of the game than I saw him go in the meat of the game. So that's weird too. It's like, it's almost like he's like sells out for sacks at this point. Like he's going at the end of the game when they're, that's when these D linemen are like, man, there's blood in the water. There's money on the table.
Gotta make my money.
Gotta make my money. I'm going to get a sack here in the final play. And it's like, sometimes I wonder, it's like, he looks a little, I mean, he's bulky and he's in great shape, but he looks a little tightly wound. He looks a little tightly muscled. I think it's going to take him 2, 3, 4 games to kind of loosen up a little bit and start to play with a little bit more fluidity. I mean, he even admitted it after the game. He's like, "Hey, man, take me a couple games." So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it because he looks like a guy who spent a lot of time in the weight room,
Right.
but he definitely looks like he's not quite in peak form.
He looks like more of a bodybuilder than a football player right now.
He's pretty yoked up.
Distinction. He's pretty yoked up. Seems a little bit stiffer than usual. He should be okay. I guess we're seeing why John Lynch said it takes 3 weeks to get into football shape. And again, I mean, he had 5 pressures in this game. He did make an impact. The ball was coming out quickly. He forced that in a lot of ways. So he's still better than most of the players on the team, but he's not what they signed. He's not what he was, and he's not what they expect. So it should be coming.
He drew a holding penalty, so he's good for
at least one.
He's good for at least one penalty against him or against the guy blocking him. The Niners only had 6 quarterback hits on the day. He had 3 of them. So it's not like he did nothing out there. It's just that, the expectation is that this guy's going to, he's making buco bucks. He had 18.5 sacks last year. You're thinking he's going to get, 2 a game. But I mean, here's the other thing, Grant. It's like, this is kind of a bigger question, but is it really wise to throw the kind of money that the Niners have thrown all in the D line when you go up against a team like Stafford and he can just go, we're getting the ball out, 3-step drop, Puka Nacua all day, pitch and catch. Right. And it just totally and utterly negates your rush.
It's a good question, because if you put all your money into your D line and you kind of go cheap in the back end, and all of a sudden you don't feel comfortable in your cornerback's ability to play man-to-man coverage, and so now you're playing soft zone coverage, giving all these wide receivers free releases, conceding quick passes, well, then you just negated your $100 million D line yourself through your coverages. So it seems like you need to be a little bit more balanced on your defense and your team.
And also don't forget, like when you do go up in a league, and when you're in a league where the quarterbacks have mobility, like a Russell Wilson or Kyler or whatever, both those guys were in the division not that long ago. We started to see what happens in that situation. You get small, fast quarterbacks who are getting the ball out quick. Suddenly everything's kind of a mush rush, which is like you get out of your stance, you take a couple steps. There's no chance in hell you're going to sack Kyler. So then you just put your hands up. So it's like you come out of your stance and you put your hands up. It's like, are you really going to pay these guys the kind of money you're paying them to mush rush half the game against quarterbacks they don't have a prayer to sack? I mean, that's kind of it's a tough one, because like, well, what's the alternative? Not have pass rushers? You need to have pass rushers. But now with all these mobile quarterbacks, you get the ball out fast, and with quick releases, they can negate the great pass rushers.
Well, I used to talk about this with Saleh. With pocket quarterbacks, you want to rush 4 and play coverage. If you can get pressure with 4 against a pocket quarterback, that's checkmate. But rushing 4 always leaves a big scramble lane. You got 5 offensive linemen against 4. There's one gap there. The quarterback can always leave. If you have a really mobile quarterback and you're concerned about keeping him in the pocket, better off rushing 5. And if you do rush 5 to eliminate that one gap, probably need to play man-to-man coverage behind it. And then you need Jason Verrett in his prime, which Robert Saleh had for 1 year. And that year he had great blitzes and he got hired as a head coach. So you have Charvarius Ward. You're spending a lot of money on him. Trust him. Put him man-to-man on the number 1 receiver on the other team and call some pressures. I think they did that a little bit more in the second half, but that's what you're set up to do. And you can do it against Daniel Jones this week or Josh Dobbs the week after. Please don't just let him out of the pocket.
It's interesting watching the Rams defend Purdy. They didn't defend Purdy at all the same way that they defended Geno. Against Geno the week before, when I watched that film, it was like in many third downs, they were rushing 3 and dropping 8 and making Geno be accurate. And he couldn't do it. And he looked kind of flummoxed by the whole thing. He was like bothered by that extra defender in coverage. Against Purdy, I don't think they rushed 3 all the game. I think it was mostly 4 and occasionally 5.
Yeah. Matt, agree with Grant about CMC, but they seemed slowed when BA got hurt. Yeah, it did seem to affect It did seem to impact Purdy. It was his first game, regular season game, without throwing 2 touchdown passes. Kyle admits they are overusing McCaffrey, says Jesus Banda.
Why?
He
Did
did
he
say
say
that.
why they're overusing him? Because they
Yeah, what
do
he
have.
said was
Yeah, what did they say?
he says it's this playing time is the position coach's call. So he essentially said that's on Bobby Turner. And what I want to know is it Bobby Turner's call, or is it essentially Christian McCaffrey saying, I'm not coming off the field? Because let's say Christian McCaffrey turned to the sideline and said, no, I'm not coming off. Would they do anything about it? I don't know that they would.
Well,
Maybe
I mean,
maybe it's Christian's call.
it better not be Christian's call. I mean, he is a player. He is not a coach. And when the
I've
game's
seen him a couple of times be like, no, Elijah, go back on the I'm staying out. When they've tried,
Yeah.
I've seen him basically say, you're not subbing me out.
I mean, that's fine in the meat of the game, but if it's a fourth quarter and you're up multiple scores and that guy
Get
gets
out.
hurt, and Shanahan's going to
Yeah.
have to answer for that. So, I
point.
mean, maybe JP Mason putting it on the carpet in camp because he did it a bunch. I don't know how many times, 4 or 5 times. Maybe maybe that's turned them off to him. Ty Davis Price, he's obviously down the depth chart. I thought Elijah Mitchell was going to get more run, but it seems like it's all CMC. And on Thursday night's going to be interesting because, I mean, literally, I mean, you played last night. So you got today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and then it's game day again. So, I mean, unless CMC is just a freaking absolute, workhorse of the highest order, I mean, I think they may want to mix in some Elijah in this next game.
I think they absolutely need to. When the trade deadline comes up in a couple months, where will the Niners need help the most, in your opinion?
I think the defensive backfield. I think that's
Yeah.
the old saying is the secret to pass coverage is pass coverage. In other words, there is no secret to pass coverage. You have to have players, and they're a little thin there. And I don't, I'm not even sure about the guys they got, to be honest. I mean, I like Lenore. Mooney Ward is almost guaranteed to have some kind of groin issue at some point. So I don't, it's right now he's healthy, but so that's probably coming. Lenore is tremendous improvement, but he also is hitting really hard this year. So there's always injury potential there. Oliver is had his best game by far. I mean, Oliver in the second half of this game was one of the main reasons they won the game. He had 3 big plays in the second half that were huge. So if we see that going forward, then maybe they're a little bit more solidified. But Ambry Thomas, question mark. And now you're bringing in Bradley Roby and guys off the street free agents, and you got Terrell Luter, who, as you mentioned before, even if he comes off the pup list, he's a rookie. So you cut Jameson. I think corner. I mean, it might be D-line. To me, it's defensive end or corner. It's probably one of those 2 positions. I know most people would say, "Oh, it's offensive tackle," but I just don't. Offensive tackle is so rare. I don't know that you're going to find anybody. To be honest, I mean, no good offensive tackle is probably going to get traded.
No, I don't think so. Corner, maybe. I would think a nickel would be nice. You know who they should trade for? I got a name for you. He would be perfect for the 49ers. Jimmy Ward.
Jimmy Ward, DJ Reed.
Jimmy Ward.
Those would be the 2 guys I would be targeting.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward. Why not? Because Jimmy Ward knows your system. He can play a bunch of different spots. Yeah. He's respected in the room. A lot of times coaches, one of the reasons you don't see a lot of trades is teams don't want to change the mood in the room. And they know that any one guy can change the mood in the room. So you got to be really careful and handpick whatever additions you make in season. And Jimmy Ward would be perfect because the guys in the room respect the hell out of him.
Probably still has a condo out here he can stay in. You know what I'm saying?
Guy loves to hit. I mean, he and Jimmy Ward's one of those guys. If you lost Fred Warner, you could play him at middle backer. If you lost, I mean, the guys. He can play corner. He can play boundary. He can play slot. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can play linebacker. I mean, he can play pretty much anything.
He'd be perfect. Don't know why they let him go. Irfin, it's like he's being held hostage by D'Amico.
I think he had a hard conversation with Kyle, and that all things, it turned him off to being here. And then he was just like, I'm leaving. And it wasn't about the money. It was like, I'm leaving.
You're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. Irfin says off topic, but have you seen the way the Colts are developing Richardson? He's playing really well. He also got a concussion, but that's not necessarily their fault.
Yeah, they're running him too much.
They
But
are.
did you see what happened? They also have Gardner Minshew.
And he's
You know,
playing
if I'm
well.
the
They got the same
Jets,
conundrum.
if I'm the Jets, I think I would be calling Indy and just saying, "Hey, wait a second, you got Gardner Minshew. You know, I'll take the Minshew match." Gardner Minshew came off the bench and was 19 of 23, and the Colts won on the road.
Yeah. I mean, he's better than Zach Wilson for sure.
Yeah.
Gardner Minshew's also in the Brock Purdy, Sam Howell mold. These quarterbacks are taking over the league. They don't look like
Richardson,
much,
by the
but
way.
don't judge a book by. Yeah.
I love Richardson, man. I mean, I don't know how much you. I know he's raw. He's really raw, but
they got a good plan for him, and he's a really good athlete.
Yeah.
Joe Crowell says CMC wants that 1,000 season bad. And when was the last time Kyle had the stones to tell one of the Click veterans no? I think there's probably something to that. Kyle, don't let CMC push you around because you're really looking out for him. Explain that to him. You want what's best for him. Larry, what you got going on the rest of the day?
Monday Night Football? A little Monday Night Football doubleheader, and this is kind of a weird week, right? Because we got the quick turnaround. I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow night. My call-in show on Wednesday nights. We'll be doing that on Wednesday night as well. Going into so Kev will join me on Wednesday night, and then somehow, some way, I'll do a post game Thursday late at night from the stadium. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm done for the day, but I'll be back tomorrow with my dad. We took last week off. We're back.
Nice.
Cohn Zone is back, father and son. Don't miss it. It's probably going to be in the afternoon, though, since, well, I don't know. I'll have to look. Well, I'll talk to my dad.
Tell Lowell I said hi. I've got a bottle of wine for both you guys as a little thank you. I just got to get it to you.
All right. Sounds good. See you tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as well. Hold on. Brother Bob says, about to be pissed off again about Quantrilla's night.
Seriously.
Go have a Coke with a smile. Take care. All the